a regular meeting of the planning board in the township of Middletown. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act and laws of 1975, the public has been notified of the planning board meeting on August 7, 2018 in Town Hall. The Middletown Planning Board notified the Independent, Star Ledger, the Two River Times on November 15, 2018. Notice the meeting is filed with the clerk and posted in Town Hall on November 15, 2018. Notification is being made through the Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to this meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Rathman?
Here.
Anyone else? Here. Mr. Wright? Mr. Ruby? Mr. Colangelo? Mr. Blue? Mr. Mercies?
Here.
Mr. Evans? Here. Mr. Burson?
Here.
Mr. Zucchini?
All right, city flag.
We have 2018-200, Baradell, Block 202, Lot 14.01, 98 Highway 36 East, application for minor site plan approval. We have 2018-212, Toll, Middletown Walk, Block 825, Lots 53, 55, 64, 66, 67, 76 through 78, and Lots 54, 70, and 81. Located in the Circus Liquors redevelopment area, Kings Highway East, applications for preliminary and final major subdivision and major site plan in accordance with the Circus Liquors redevelopment plan. Then we have 2019-105, Waterworks Partners, LLC, Block 840.03, Lot 1, 188 Long Avenue, application for minor subdivision approval. 2019-104, G. Logan Construction, Block 81, Lot 7, 17 Dolby Place, application for minor subdivision approval. 2019-201, Christian Brothers Academy, Block 1063, Lot 67.01, 850 Moon Springs Road, application for major site plan and conditional use approval.
Thank you. Okay, next is approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, the Christian Brothers Academy application,
Yes.
could I ask that we carry to the September 2nd meeting? We did provide notice, I asked it to be reviewed with the acceptable status for
It was exchange of emails over the day.
Yes, you know, like I said,
All
September 2nd, it's October 2nd.
right, so we also originally voted was November.
That was a mistake. Another mistake. I'm testing you to make sure you get it.
So I got the affidavit of publication, the affidavit of service there, the orders from the board of jurisdiction. If you want to carry it, you can just do it from here to whatever date.
October 2nd.
Let's make sure we get it right. October
2. October 2.
at 6:30.
Excuse me, citizen question on that. Are you going to send out another letter, registered letter to notify
No.
everyone?
That's what we just did. Is this,
Okay.
he did that already, and now we're just carrying that application to October 2nd. There'll be no further notice.
Okay, so there's no notification, then that goes to the residents that live in the housing development area there.
No, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Approval of minutes, July 10th, 2019. Any motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, this is the approval of resolutions, 2019-100, toll on Sunnyside
issue as to whether or not it's going to be sewer or septic, and Tomza or not Tomza. So the resolution has just recently revised, says sewer, they get it, it's not septic. Approved by the board. So I'm not sure, I just sent that revision over late yesterday, so I'm not sure if he has that, but that, the earlier version said it was going to be Tomza. No, the earlier version said it was going to be septic.
Mr. Chair, I just want to interrupt. I see one of the resident for CBA, and I just walked in, and I just want to...
Okay, so let us finish this thing first, and then we'll re-announce it. So moved, I second it. Roll call.
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mr. Acton?
Yes.
Mrs. Snell? Yes. Mr. Burson?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have 2018-107, Frank Demodio, need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mr. Acton?
Yes.
Mrs. Snell? Yes. Mr. Mercies?
Yes.
Mr. Burson?
Yes.
All right, so move. Before we move out of resolutions, I noticed in your report somewhere as a media resolution.
Right, here's why. The board's been sued on the denial on Seth Bell Wawa application, and I just made it a practice in the past to make sure that there's a resolution on file, just saying I'm authorized to defend. I don't think we need to do it every time. I'm just being, overly cautious just to make sure that I've had to come up with these corporate attorneys that who authorized you to file an answer on behalf of the board. It's kind of inherent in the job, but just want to make sure.
And it was in the resolution is in the packet, so, all right, I'll make a motion that this board represents.
I'll second that.
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mrs. Snell? Yes. Mr. Mercies?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander? Mr. Burson?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Before we go any further, I gotta ask you to stop. No, not you, the gentleman in the back. Your voice is just resonating through the speaker system. Thank you. Oh, yes. A couple of people walked in late. You're here for CBA. It will not be heard tonight. It is being carried to October 2nd.
Second, we got a babysitter for tonight, so that's why the whole town is here for that. Now they're saying that they're not going to send out more letters, so we have to let everybody know to come back on October 2nd, because we all got the letter for tonight. So that's why our only issue is that we made plans for tonight.
Well, I think they made plans too, but the problem is that there's so much on the agenda before that you're going to be waiting around, they'd be waiting around to a very late hour, and it probably wouldn't get heard, and that's not better than this. So I understand you want to have it tonight, they would like to have it tonight,
Okay.
but the land use law allows that it be carried to a new meeting without further notice. And that's what they've asked. They're on the last on the agenda. There are two other applications in between. They may not get heard either, depending on how long the Toll Brothers walk application takes.
That's fine. Can we just ask that a letter gets sent out to the neighborhood for October 2nd?
I mean, the applicant could volunteer that, but they don't have to do it. So they don't have to do it. If anybody's interested, under the law, you got notice, and tonight's the night, and it's being carried.
How do they know that it's being carried if they're not here?
Well, if they're not here, presumably they didn't care.
No.
That's I'm not going to debate all of this. The law says they notice it's being carried. That's what they have to do. They notice for tonight it's being carried without notice, without publication, to October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Thank you for letting me know.
We'll make sure they own it. Thank you.
Okay. Number 7. This is an open meeting to the public. Is there anything not on the agenda that the public would like to hear before us? Okay. Excuse me. I was closing the door. I have a comment to make before we start. Everything else. Item number 7. Okay. Open meeting of the public. Hey, my name is Alan Watson, living at 1 Collinson Drive in New Monmouth. I just want to make a comment about all the microphones that are up on the dais here in the township. Us as taxpayers pay lots of money for these microphones. We would appreciate if you used them. It's very hard to hear. Go ahead and say about that. Excuse me?
As you have done in the past, it helps if you raise your hand and signal from back there. We can't be heard back there because we don't.
Right, but it would be better if you used the microphone, like the one right in front of you. Right. It would be hard for me to hear you from here. If you're not using the microphone.
No, I am using the microphone. It's just not picking me up. But we hear you and we'll do the best we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Reviewing the
Like that.
planning board payment of vouchers. I don't think everyone wants to hear my loud voice. Reviewing the payment of vouchers for August 7th, 2019. Total for James Gorman, $10,917.80. Total for T&M Associates, $33,328.73. Total for EMR Architects, $2,557.50. Total for Soundtrack Traffic Consultants, $13,469.36. I'd like the approval of these vouchers totaling $60,273.39. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Brings us to our agenda and 2018-200 Maradale, Block 202.
Yes.
And as the gentleman is coming up, as the gentleman is going forward here, this is a minor site plan, no notice is required, no variances, so there's no publication and no notice. So, Mr. Barrett, you're Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
And you're representing yourself?
Yes.
So, you remain seated. Please raise your right hand. Swear testimony about the board's truth, all truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Your first name, sir?
Michael?
In summary, you operate some sort of motor vehicle service area?
Yes, I'm on Fast Track Oil and Lube on Highway 36, 33 years. And it was about 2 years ago, began going to some of the garage tax and the washes, buying cars.
You're going to make this a lot of mistakes. You have a little microphone.
Okay, so yeah, I was buying cars and decided to apply for a dealer license. And this was more than 2 years ago. We applied for the license. It actually went pretty quick. Background check, fingerprinting, insurance. We got the bonding. And nothing changed at all on the site plan. When the gentleman came, I took the test. He was there, and this was February of 18. He had my license plates and my license. And he said, what you have to do is go to the planning board and show that you have 2 spots designated for used cars. At that point, he even said to me, he goes, I'll wait here if you want. We were busy, very busy, and I said, I'll do this tomorrow. And a lot of this was my fault, because then we had to get a site plan. Unfortunately, I hired a home value. provisions that were not put on there. Even though I gave this gentleman a list right away of everything that was needed, there was one point where he said, no, you don't need that. I'm like, please put it on there. I want to get this through. Anyway, that's where we're at, and I since have gone to Richard Stockton, who did it right the first time. And, hopefully that doesn't. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I went by the recommendation.
That's, I know.
Okay.
Let's let it go.
Okay.
May I just interject here? I'd like the board, just point out to the board that the reason why Mr. Gardell is here is because we have an ordinance provision where you cannot have a retail or wholesale business display goods for sale, including a motor vehicle, except in accordance with the site plan approval by the planning board. So really, all he's doing is having 2 spots that are designated as required for his license, if I'm not mistaken. We first went to the zoning officer who sent him to the planning board because of this ordinance requirement. And we don't have any, from a planning perspective, his parking is in compliance. We just want those 2 parking spaces to be designated. And on-site visit and Mr. Stockton drew, we found a storage container in the wooded yard, which is not permitted. It would have been cited by a code enforcement. It's not permitted. So we just wanted to remove that, but otherwise we don't have any concerns.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Any questions in particular?
So you will be moving this container? Is it moved yet?
I'm sorry, you mean the
Storage
To
container?
the back of the trash can.
Oh, yes, because actually I have a car in there, so that car will be coming out. The storage container, that will go. Absolutely.
Is the prohibition just in the location of it? Can they move it to the front?
They're not supposed to display it anyway. The storage container is not permitted. No non-residential use is permitted to store any materials outdoors. So typically storage containers are not permitted anyway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, I mean, it's all the way to the back. Once they get their permit, as long as it moves, I have no problem with
Move to,
it. Like, remove it.
oh, okay.
Well, either move or remove.
Remove, I'm sorry, remove.
Understand?
Yes.
Any questions?
Chairman, just 2 items from my letter.
Yes.
If you can just identify the other spaces, the customer, employee, and storage spaces that you may have. And then secondly, is there any security lighting on the site?
Yes, outside security lighting, full alarms, video systems, we have 12 cameras. And there are no cars ever left on the lot because our business consists of, there's no appointments. It's a quick loop, people are in and out. Very, very rarely would we have even one car left on that lot. Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, you have to open to the public. even
Oh,
though
okay,
it's-
this is our part. I'm sorry. Anyone from the public? Questions for this applicant on this application? No one? We'll close the public portion.
I'll make the motion.
I did.
Okay,
For a second.
for a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right, Bob, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to accept MV Bar parking lots, and that and also that the storage container is totally removed. 2 spaces for vehicle sales.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Snell?
Yes.
Mr. Mercedes?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo? Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Ready to go?
Yes.
You're good?
Now, so let me, note send me the paperwork.
So the next meeting will be a resolution, will be adopted at the next meeting, which is the beginning of September, on the 8th. And that'll be the written piece of paper. You can, I don't know what else you have to do within the township.
Well, I have to notify Visit Montana.
Well, you can tell them, it got approved tonight.
Okay.
The resolution to memorialize that approval will be in a month. That's the next meeting. Okay? You can tell them it got approved tonight, and you'll have the resolution in September.
And is there a time frame as to how long I have to do that switch? As soon as possible.
As soon as we get to, when we start this meeting, as soon as we get to the board of whatever,
Okay, very good. I just want to say a special thanks to Thomas. He's helped me out through this and putting up with my patience. Thank you.
A lot of work for something small.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that's going to bring us up old business. 2018-212. Day.
Mr. Chairman, John Joseph, the townhouse, here in the area, John.
Let the court.
So we need to get a,
Just
Mr. Chairman, John Joseph, the townhouse, again on behalf of applicant, Mr. Toll Brothers. This is a continued application, and we intend to present this evening as our architect and traffic presentation. And with your permission, I'll call the witnesses that I'd like to have. I'm going to ask Jeremy Green, who's our licensed professional architect, and Mr. Chairman, also going to ask to swear Matthew Markovic, who is the vice president of Toll, also involved with the development of the architecture and design. So, I want to ask you guys to stand and be sworn.
Your full name?
Matthew, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, Markovich, M-A-R-K-O-V-I-C-H.
Your full name for the record?
Jeremy Green, last name is spelled G-R-E-E-N-E.
Just for the record, Mr. D'Angelo, please recuse. That was quick. New.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resume for Mr. Green. So, permit and will walk with the That's
Let me go back and look at, if you look at your notes, I'll look at mine. What was the last exhibit you got to? 84? That is.
I think 84.
What's the phasing plan we're going to reach?
All right, so 85, let me mark his resume, Mr. Green's resume.
I'm going to, Mr. Chairman? Yes. If I can proceed, I'll ask Mr. Green to present his credentials, ask him to accept him as an expert in the field of architecture. Gentlemen, you look forward to very education experience and involvement with this project.
Good evening. Again, my name is Jeremy Green. I'm the Director of Architecture at Full Architecture. My education was Bachelor of Architecture in 1994 from Circus University. I've had about 25 years experience in multifamily, residential, and commercial construction. I've been with Toll Brothers for about 9.5 years. I've been representing the New Jersey division as a business partner. So for this particular application, which has multiple products, I'll be presenting the aspects of the project and how it is compliant with the development plan.
You are a licensed architect?
Yes, and I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey since 2003, as well as homeowners.
Okay.
All right, so, for our purposes, Jeremy, could you begin by explaining the two housing types that we have proposed in this project?
Yes, I'll see. Before you do, let's make sure. You didn't prepare these plans. You're familiar with these plans.
The plans that you see displayed right now were prepared by my office.
They were.
Yes. The other ones that you referred
They
to
were
later.
prepared by you or others under your direction?
Under my direction.
And Aaron just put a molding blank there. It's easy to try to chase
Exactly.
that one over there.
Right, so for purposes of this, let's mark these exhibits. So I'd like to do, Mr. Board,
I mean,
want to go left to right.
the board has a packet of architectural exhibits in the state put together.
Then they were submitted with the application.
The application, right? So we're going to mark them individually and just in whatever order, and we'll identify them.
Correct. And we do not refer to every one of them, but the ones that are out there we will.
Okay.
So the first exhibit that we have here is what you have in your plan packet is Plan 2, which is a floor plan for a typical townhome.
So just put A6 on there someplace.
This exhibit is dated today's date. So what we have here is one of our typical townhome units. I'll start with the lower level. There's a two-car garage as well as an entry with a foyer that walks up to the main living level. Behind the garage, there is a small mudroom foyer that also does walk up to the first floor living level. There's an area for an optional powder room or closet, a closet itself, mechanical space, as well as flex space, which will be unfinished but marketed as an upgrade option for additional living space. On the living level, when you come up the stairs, you're presented with an open great room, dining, and a kitchen in the rear. We also have a planned variation that has a kitchen in the middle. And a small breakfast nook off the back, as well as an optional deck, which is represented here, and I'll talk about a little bit more when we refer to an exhibit further on. When you get to the third floor, which is the bedroom level, you come up to a small hallway area, 2 bedrooms in the front of the home, a shared bath, master bedroom suite in the rear with a large walk-in closet, and a master bath suite. Are there any questions about the floor plan?
Did you also prepare the exhibit with regard to the elevations of the townhouses?
We did, yes. In my direction.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
In your earlier renditions, you had a walkway or like a little cupola so you can get up to the roof. How do they get to the roof on this one?
Okay, yeah, I was going to actually speak about that one with the next, but I can now. So that's a good point that I'll bring up now. There is going to be an optional roof terrace, and it will just be a continuation of the stair with a small penthouse to the roof that will simply access the roof terrace. There will be no living space per se, there is simply just the stair.
When you say a penthouse, is it the type, and I've lived in New York, is it the type of actually enclosure, or is it a type of sort of like a trap door, filtered light door that just opens up?
No, it's an actual stair enclosure that walks up. Again, we can't put any living space up there under the International Residential Code and New Jersey Code. So it's simply you will step out onto the roof terrace, small step down for water intrusion purposes.
Jeremy, what is the approximate size of that rooftop outlet?
Probably about 4 by 10, I guess. You know, by the
Is it
sloping.
big enough to let the stairs come up?
Yeah, the stairs are simply the required
Slow
headroom.
in and push them.
Yeah,
It was somewhat like your original plan where you had more of a traditional look. You had the little cupolas on the top.
I'm not sure which plans you're referring to.
So you continue.
Well, I'm going to represent that, of course, Mr. Green can check that, but that is exactly what is being continued. Just, and you're speaking of the cupola, it was a small area that was covered with a door to the outside. The stairs come up a landing and you walk out to the terrace. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
Yes, and again, because of the location in the center of the plan and on the party wall, you would actually not see it from any of the rendering views that we're representing here. A little further to this.
Because it's in the center of the building,
Right.
right angle of the
Right,
view.
in the middle.
You're not permitted vision.
Correct.
So,
Can I continue?
continue.
I have the next exhibit, which is the front elevation dated today. We'll put that in as A7. So what you see represented here is what we refer to as a 4-pack. So the buildings on this project come in 3, 4, and 5 unit arrangements. And we're paying particular attention to that we have to have a variety of elevation styles, and not the same elevation style cannot be next to another townhouse block within a building. So what you see here is elevations that represent a variety of different brick colors, which I'm pointing to here, here, as well as what we refer to as a Laura cement board. It's a panelized system, and it would be an accent color on the bays. So you see here it's on the end. In this case, it's just on the living level, and in this case, we actually don't have one. So the idea is, in the spirit of the redevelopment plan, was there were a number of different features that we had to provide for, a minimum of 2, which was, again, locations of bays, different materials, different colors, accents, as well as other things like railings and parapets and decorative items, cast stone, brickheads, and in fact, in most cases, we meet 4 to 5 on every of these elevation styles. So again, what you see here would be representative of the spirit and character of the typical townhome building. So to go back to the point about the roof terrace, I wanted to bring up the fact that there would be a 4-foot parapet around the entire perimeter of the roof terrace. And again, these are optional, so not every unit would actually have that stairway enclosure going up to it, but they would all still have a parapet, flat roof drain system up there. One of the other things that's important to note is that on all the high visibility locations, which is many of the end, where the ends are exposed, we are required to bring a story of masonry. Brick in this case, so whatever color brick would be on an end unit is going to wrap around the side in the entire perimeter of that side elevation. Additionally, any of the materials that you see on the front, such as the black windows, the masonry, the trim details, the cornice, would also wrap around the sides and the rears. So if I could put the rear elevation in as exhibit be able to talk to them in tandem, because I'm sure you'll have questions that I'll need to refer to them. So the rear elevation will be Exhibit A8. So let me talk about this, and then we'll take general questions, if you don't mind, about the elevations themselves. So as I mentioned, the siding color, the trim details, the corner board, the cornice, and the windows and all those treatments will be all around, and that's especially important as it addresses Kings Highway, as well as some of the adjoining properties, that we have a harmonious look to the buildings. One of the other features that I mentioned back, referring to Exhibit A7, which is the floor plan, is there will be optional decks. They come in a couple different varieties and sizes. The deck actually can be just a deck with no access to grade. It can be a deck with steps to grade, or it can be a unit that has no deck. So again, we feel that that option, that variety will, enhance the character and, lessen the potential for monotony and look alike as well, even though we're not required on rear elevations to adhere to that. We think it's a great feature, and we know that it's a very popular option that many of our buyers choose.
What do you do if you have no deck?
It would simply just be, you would have a fixed unit, or you would have a railing that's on the exterior, so that if you wanted to open up, say, a slider and have natural ventilation come in, there would be fall protections required by code.
Can a resident put a power awning on that deck?
That would be something that would be controlled by the rules of the homeowners association, and I really can't speak to that.
Well, I don't know that we looked at that particular issue.
Well, I can see right now, when I see those kind of decks, people are going to want power awnings.
In terms of whether the building can support them, that's the question that Jeremy can answer.
It certainly could.
Yeah.
Structurally, it could, yes.
So it would really be the residential community, or
If the association was prohibited for some reason, but if it's popular item, I would think you'd want to do it for the people who live there.
Can residents put in their own deck, and is there a limitation on the size or dimensions of the deck?
Yes, residents could put in their own deck, and I anticipate that there would be opportunities for buyers to enhance those decks with some options and upgrades. In terms of limiting the size, I'm unsure if there's anything in the zoning that does that.
Well, the zoning would provide a limitation because you can't go past the rear setback. And then there's square footage issues. It would be subject to a permit at the building department under any event. And if it didn't go through the builder, they would then have to submit an application.
Are these simple lots?
No, these are,
Limited common element to that?
That's
yes,
exactly right.
that the homeowners association, of course, can control that. And since we're offering decks, we tend to permit decks. And if someone wanted to buy it from someone else, of course, my clients wouldn't like that as much as if they were to have it built by them.
but you would have restrictions as to either a grill on the deck, or even a small hot tub or anything like that?
I think that that's something that would be regulated by the building code. And I believe you can have grills on the decks.
Yes, we have other townhouse communities where grills are permitted on the decks, both by code and by the homeowners association rules.
I'm just saying more from an objective point of view. Decks could be as large as the limited common element, as long as it didn't violate a setback. I'm just saying, what's going to happen is when these go in,
It's about the same size.
Theoretically, I suppose they could, and that's certainly something we can look at with the HOA rules to see if there might be some reasonable or realistic limit to how large that could be.
Well, would you consider that the homeowners association restrictions would make the size of the decks that you install the maximum size?
I think that there could be opportunities to expand the deck to some degree, but that it would have to be limited. I agree that that's a valid concern. Also, there would be architectural rules and regulations in the HOA docs regarding keeping a uniform appearance, contiguous materials regardless of whether the deck were installed by us or whether the homeowner did something with their deck 10 years later.
Excuse me, if you put up an awning, you put up a permanent cover.
An enclosed porch, they'll see windows or...
Oh, enclosed porch, I would say no. But we do see in other communities that things like trellises are very popular, so I could imagine shade structures, privacy walls, things like that.
Once you get started, once the first person does it.
Yes, well, you do have the rules and regs to start with. Oftentimes, they do get modified throughout the life of the community as things come up, and each resident would be required to make an application to the Architectural Review Committee prior to proceeding to a building permit application.
Okay.
Okay. So, Jeremy, do you have any other materials to present for the townhouses?
I do not. We actually do have some samples back here if there's interest in.
Well, I don't know that you want to mark those into evidence, but perhaps we could reference that as an exhibit, photograph them, and file a photograph of the board tomorrow.
You guys bringing the stuff in.
Hey, you want to keep it, well, it's here if you want.
We have no space to keep.
Well, then let's just describe it. I anticipated that you would say that, so why don't we just describe it, and if there are any questions, we can address them. So why don't you bring it forward, and we'll mark it as, if I may, I'd suggest we mark it A9 for identification. We won't move it into evidence at this point. And,
Yes, we would like photographs of this, please, for our file.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, so what you see here is
I want to make some work for all of this. Mark it A9. We don't want the original. You can keep it. Take photographs, submit it tomorrow, and then we'll have
the record.
photographic evidence of A9. If it ever becomes important, you can bring it to a court or something.
We'll agree.
Yes, so A9, as you're looking at here, is a mock-up of a typical siding trim arrangement, which you can see, which I'm talking a little bit here, but typical, I'm referring to A8, the rear elevation, something that you would see here to be a side trim detail or around the window. Two different siding samples, again, 0.042 siding per the redevelopment plan. We're representing here either 4 or 5-inch double reveal. At the very bottom, this is actually the Allura panel. I'm going to refer to Exhibit A7. You guys can see this. This is representative of the decorative bays on the front elevation. And that's, I don't recall what color that is, but it's, as you can see, it's a dark slate blue color.
Mr. Chairman, the redevelopment ordinance that we're under specifies the weight or grade of the material to be the
4.2 inches.
And we're testifying that we are complying with that requirement.
You got that agreement, Stan?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Jeremy, with regard to the townhouses, is there any other architectural information you intend to present?
I don't think so. I'll take questions.
Can we go to the part C4 of the project?
Sure.
This is the affordable component to the residential project.
Excuse me, please, before you go on. I just want to ask you one other question. Those four, are those vents, roof vents, or I just want to see 4 little openings, after openings, just 4 white dots, so what are those?
Those are actually the required roof ventilation.
So then your roof itself starts above the vent? what I'm saying?
Yes.
And will your AC units be up on the roof or, condenser units?
Condenser units will have to be down in grade.
Okay.
Yes, these vents are required to bring the air intake. They will go towards the front of the unit, and there will be what you refer to as mushroom vents, which will give you positive ventilation.
Also, the customer pre-building these units, if the customer already purchases one, do you folks say what finish will be on the apartment or townhouse itself? It's pre-done, preordained by you, not by the customer?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be choosing from a palette of different elevation styles, and again, it'll be our obligation to control that not the same goes to one another.
Okay.
So again, there will be a material and color palette that the
And Mr. Markovich, you have the same requirement in the projects you're building now in Middletown, is that correct?
In terms of not building the same elevation, the same colors left next to each other, that's correct. We do the same thing at the estates of Town Hall, for
Why
example.
don't you just describe that quickly for the board and what technique we use here?
Yeah, at the estates of Town Hall, as here, you don't have the same elevation on two adjacent units that are next to each other within the building, and you also don't have the same color selections in terms of the brick or the siding on two adjacent units that are next to each other within the building.
So as a customer comes in, you identify the existing design, and then they may or may not get the unit that they choose first.
That's correct. If they want, for example, a certain home site location and a certain elevation that's already taken, they might have to move to a different building.
And your sales staff handles all that in time with client contact.
Yeah, the way that this is structured in the redevelopment plan and the way that we do it, it's straightforward enough that it can be handled on a Saturday or a Sunday between the salesperson and the customer.
Thank you.
Before you set up, you should have stopped it sooner. Let's go back to these units. First of all, where have you ever built these in New Jersey?
excuse me.
Where have you ever built these units with a flat roof in New Jersey?
I personally have not worked on a project that is built to use.
What is the real purpose of a flat roof?
It's to provide that what we call exterior living space. So in this case, there's a couple opportunities for exterior living space. There's the patio level down at the ground floor, or the decks at the living level, as well as the roof terraces on top of the roof. It's a very, very popular option nowadays. We're doing it in several states successfully. This happens to be one of the first projects that we're doing in New Jersey.
So you're expecting the residents to utilize that space up there like a patio?
Sure.
If they purchase the roof terrace option.
Right.
Well, it is an option.
I'm sure they can always break through later and put up, their own stairway there.
Yeah, that would be.
That has all the bracing if they want to do that later, say you do it later. That has bracing and pre-set up there, or do they have to add special bracing if they wish to have that upstairs level? They don't buy it at first.
They would have to hire a structural engineer.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's two completely different roof structural plans. You either choose it and it's framed out that way, or it's just simple front to back roof trusses.
They're not simply walking out onto the asphalt.
No, they can't do that.
Not at all. Yeah, the only access in the case of there not being a roof terrace is just the required access into the attic space itself.
What limitations placed on the roof patios by the association?
Well, building code and the homeowners association both have regulations.
I'm not sure we have any building codes for flat roofs.
We've never had building
We
codes.
don't have any, that's why I'm...
The question I have, they could actually have lights up there. They could have lights, stand-up lights, contemporary lights. You see some of this in Brooklyn. I hate to say that, I do remember this design in 1940s, 1950s in Middletown, New Jersey.
Nothing new under the sun.
Go back to now. Yeah, that's the way it was built years ago, that look. But they could, if they did buy the patio upstairs, they could put lights, they could put seating up there.
Correct.
They could put a water fountain, whatever they wanted. Am I correct?
Yes, they could add features to the terrace, yes.
That is something that you would want to control as a homeowners association.
You know, the question I have on that, for the association, because I've seen some of these houses, and possibly they could put, and this is a question, they could put a heat lamp up there. You know, it's a 6-foot lamp, which emanates heat. That could be a fire hazard, maybe not. But I'm just saying, these future things, could they be, have to be really controlled?
For sure, yeah, these are all
This is
things.
something new for Middletown.
Yes, these are all things that would need to be addressed in the HOA rules and regs.
If you have one of these, if you purchase the option, you have what are you standing on? What is it for?
It's basically a wearable waterproof surface that would be drains that would be conveyed to scuppers.
Okay. So non-technically, what does it look like? Does it look like decking or does it look like?
There's a variety of different things that can be done. You can simply put on a material which I'll refer to a lean brand, it's called Dexatex, and it's simply a sand impregnated waterproof material that is UV slip resistant. It can be the finished surface. They can put lightweight patio pavers, pencil pavers, and anything that would be compliant with the roof structural capacity that would be delineated as well.
Even if it was like granite tile or quasi stone tile.
I mean, we would typically over-design the roof truss system to accommodate the fact that there could be some heavier materials other than just a waterproof member. Yes.
Could accommodate a re-roof, like could accommodate grass?
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Is there anything structurally that would prohibit somebody from putting let's say, crazy for a fire pit up there? I know it's probably not.
I mean, structurally, we're going to design it based upon it being an occupiable roof terrace. Again, I would say that would have to be controlled by documentation.
We know this fire code prevent that? Or?
Yeah, like a gas fire pit, you could put, literally could put that upstairs.
I think there is,
Or gas heat lamp.
I think there is fire code, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if you, grills have to be factored off the building, I don't believe you could put fire pit, using that logic, I would assume that one wouldn't permit a fire pit on top of it.
But we don't have any of that in our rules, I don't think so. As John was really, I never seen any of it. John, have you?
Well, it's in the ordinance, it's in the redevelopment ordinance.
We need to see that, so if you're saying that your copies that
Yeah.
every board member needs copies of the redevelopment agreement that John is referring to.
Well, it's the ordinance, it's your ordinance.
It's the ordinance, I think this was sent to you all when this was adopted in last year.
But you want it said again? Mr. President?
This was given to you guys last year. You all have it. This is the Circus redevelopment plan.
This is the toll brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in this.
It's in there.
Correct. There is a reference to where it permits decks, it permits rooftop decks, I think.
If I may, it's page 16, number 9, D. Which is entitled
It
Other.
says under townhomes, each floor story of a townhouse building may be habitable.
Correct, and if you go to letter D,
And then there is a,
other accessory,
there's an, let's see.
D.
Yes. So in that it says, no, that talks about the building height, but it does talk about deck line for mansard roofs, and it talks about yes, it talks about providing flat roofs. So there's a whole lot.
But is there a litany about having fire products?
There's nothing, because that is not a design or an ordinance thing. No ordinance writes that, but I can tell you that it's more about the fire prevention, fire code. This is an ordinance. It's not going to talk about fire codes or building codes.
It does specify gas grills. So there would not be, gas grills.
Allowed or not allowed?
Yeah, they're allowed. Gas grills, they specify gas on the rooftop.
Outdoor fireplaces, gas grills, outdoor kitchens, and other permitted accessory structures. Wait a minute. Let me read this again.
What are we talking about?
So this talks about what it would exclude in
From height,
measuring
height.
height. It doesn't talk about providing it. It just talks about it, you know. So one would say that this is insinuated, but it's not, it's implicit. It's not directly permitted or not permitted or prohibited. But it does talk about providing decks, porches, flat roofs, So, but specifically gas grill, I haven't seen anywhere in the
I think that's something we have to look into, whether it's a gas grill or gas fire pit or a gas heat lamp. These things can blow over. I'm just worried about the fire protection of that area. And there is no, I presume there's no, is there a fire spray system on these?
These buildings will have a fire sprinkler system, yes.
Okay, it might behoove you, and I don't know what the laws say, to put a fire sprinkler system on folks who do have outdoor setup on the roof, if they're using gas grills and stuff. I just see possible problem there.
Okay, let me ask it this way. If the ordinance does not specify anything about this, about fire stuff, is it reasonable that the HOA would allow that?
I'm sorry, allow what specifically?
Okay, is it reasonable that, think back to the homeowners association in Greece that when I lived in townhouses, there's all sorts of stipulations about you can have a gas grill, not a charcoal grill, you can do this but not that.
Yes, exactly.
Is it reasonable to expect that the HOA would say you cannot have the ABCD type of fire, whether it's a grill or fire pit, or gas appliance, etc., on the roof deck?
It's
reasonable expectation.
It's a reasonable expectation that there would be restrictions, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have anything from our fire department, or our fire department involved with this?
Yes, they do. When we approve the final restoration plans, we get an approval from Townhouses. But what this talks about, roof decks are permitted, explicitly permitted, on its shade structures. But it talks about just permitting outdoor fireplaces, gas grills, outdoor kitchens and other elements, but it doesn't say on a rooftop deck. But that by itself is permitted. So a lot of houses have a grill on their deck, which is, and I think most towns, and I know that this is in my town, that you have to have your gas grill has to be 5 feet off. It's a fire code, and I'm assuming it's a statewide requirement. So.
No, I don't assume that this is in any of the homes or apartments or townhomes presently in Middletown. John, what do you think?
I agree with you. I've not seen this anywhere.
There are homeowner associations that don't allow grills at all on decks because of fire. So I wouldn't assume you're going to be able to put a grill there unless someone knows something I don't know.
I believe you're right. I think a lot of these associations have these HOA rules. But I'm saying from a fire point of view, you cannot have it. It has to be at least 5 feet off, if I recall correctly. And again, this is beyond what we do here. But to answer the question, is a roof deck permitted as per the redevelopment plan? Yes, it's permitted.
We're not arguing, you know that.
The question the board is struggling with is, what's allowed? And by implication, we're not counting the roof kitchen, the outdoor kitchens, and fireplace, and pits, and whatever, they're allowed up there, they just don't count towards the height. So if somebody put something up there that was an outdoor kitchen, I mean, whatever an outdoor kitchen may be, pantry, whatever it may be, and it's 8 feet high, tall, that does not count towards the height of the building.
So,
That's the only way you can interpret that
correct.
particular provision.
That's right, and that's what I said. It's not explicitly permitted, but it's implied because it talks about rooftop decks. But the purpose of the rooftop deck is to provide the residents an opportunity to enjoy the outdoor living.
Here's my interpretation. They can put whatever they want, as long as it doesn't violate building, fire code, or their own particular wants and desires expressed in their HOA notes. And so if they want to put a flagpole up there, they want a tree, a fire pit, a roof kitchen, a kiddie pool, I don't know. Our ordinance doesn't prohibit that.
I would agree with you. That's how I would interpret it.
Lights, whatever. They can put what they want up there, under our redevelopment ordinance. And then the limitation would be they don't want to have their own development becoming aesthetic or attractive. They also, obviously can't violate any building fire. They want to have a string of lights up there, or somebody wants to put a canopy up there. It would seem to be under that particular provision. They're not specifically permitted, but they talks about it in terms of they don't count towards height. I would interpret it like you can have.
It's permitted by the board, it's not prohibited by the ordinance, but it can be prohibited by the HOA rules, right? So my question, and I don't know if you can answer it, are the restrictions that an HOA places on stuff like that, or what they allow, is that subject to fire codes review, or the fire department review?
No, typically not. I mean, obviously, you couldn't get a permit for any of those things, and it could be a violation, but the HOA could be on any given night, amend their rules or regs and say, okay, you can have, trapeze act.
I agree with you. In your other states, what are you finding about controlling what goes on?
It's certainly something that we could get into more detail on. I mean, I would just say, if it's not permitted by fire code, as Mr. Berman said, the HOA rules and regs would restrict things beyond what's permitted by the code. So if it's not permitted under the fire code, it wouldn't be permitted, and there would be additional restrictions beyond that. Part of our requirement here is to submit the HOA docs to the town for review before we make our submission to DCA. So we could certainly address those items in that submission.
And Mr. Marco, it's kind of simple. You're not building these to encourage someone to violate the fire rule or create a fire hazard.
Not at all. Not at
And
all.
in fact, it's not only expected, you intend to include in the homeowner documents a limitation to gas fire.
Gas grills, yes, as opposed to charcoal. And certainly, we don't want anything, these obviously neighbors who are in close proximity to each other, we don't want any activities that would be disruptive to the neighboring house, which is really the purpose of the rules.
Since we're on that subject, in addition to the 4-foot parapet, isn't there a 4-foot parapet between each of the units? So if everyone on there, perhaps Jeremy, you could explain that?
Sure.
And then also the composition of the parapet, because you have the front elevation could have a fence, but the side and the rear would be solid.
That's correct. So if you refer to Exhibit A7, when there is a roof terrace situation, there you have to extend firewall all the way to the top of what we would call the parapet wall, which would be roughly 4 feet. So that core wall assembly, which is stipulated in our redevelopment agreement, which is a 2-hour firewall assembly, would go all the way literally to what we, the coping on that 4-foot divider between the units.
So it's going to be 4 foot, you will not have that like clear the fence that you have in the front. You would not have that on the sides. That would definitely be a parapet between each.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can actually see it if you look at this, the A7 rendering, you can see that brick returning that would continue all the way through the building. And again, that is a code requirement to separate them.
If I may, Jeremy, since we're talking about these rooftops, all of the rooftops on each one of the townhouses will have a 4-foot parapet.
Yes, they will all be separated from one another.
And if someone elects to take the option, then they would have all 4 corners of their property with that 4-foot parapet around it.
That's correct.
And the rear, and if you're on the corner unit, you would have the sidewall would be solid, and the rear parapet of each of these units is solid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But along the frontage, there could be some of these louvered parapets.
It's the decorative railings.
Decorative, and then some would be just solid with the siding material.
That is correct.
Those railings, do they have what they call stainless steel cable stretched in between them? Or, I'm just curious what the look is.
I don't think we've decided for certain, but I believe what we're representing here is actually will be like a 2x2 metal or 3 metal baluster and post system.
Or solid one of those glass things? No.
We really haven't gotten that deep into the architectural design. I mean, again, with the fact that we need to provide a variety of different styles to meet the ordinance, the development plan, that may be a consideration as we get further into the design.
I would assume whether I elect the option of the rooftop deck, that your walls are going to melt therein.
Yeah.
Separate.
Yes, that's what we were just describing.
Just if I opt for a deck.
It goes up 4 feet regardless.
Is it 4 feet?
Fire code.
Is it 4 feet regardless? I was also worried about kids being up there. We're looking at different things, totally different options here, and we've never done this. And the safety, 4 feet, 7 years, 3-year-old can climb over 4 feet. I'm just putting these out there that I see possible problems.
I noticed on none of the renderings does it show the drainage system off the roof.
It actually will be sloped to the rear, and it will be gathered from internal drains, which will be conveyed down through into the stormwater system.
Yeah, but I don't, so you're coming down the back of this A8. Where's the drainage?
So you would drain to the rear, and then there would be a scupper system that takes it down into internal drains that would go down the building.
Internal drain is behind the structure. Right?
Yeah, behind that, right at the edge of the parapet, you have a back pitch, and it's typical of a. And then again, we find a chase wall where we might double it up to make sure that we can get that down to grade.
All of these units that you're describing here, they appear to be on the outside of the development. When I say the outside,
Mr. Chairman, this option is offered in all the units.
I'm sorry,
The rooftop option will be offered in all of the units throughout the development.
throughout the development, not just the ones on terrain.
No, it will be a standard option throughout the development.
Any one of the owners could elect this option.
Okay, which is an option for the people in there. So when you were saying before, you're trying to keep down the noise and the privacy and whatever for the people in here. I'm more concerned with the people on Carriage Drive, West Palm Road, et cetera, on the outside.
Certainly.
Because they're the ones that are going to see and hear everything that goes on. That's why I'm really interested in what the homeowner town didn't put it in the ordinance as to how it's going to be controlled. They set up circus lights up there. I don't think the people on Terrace Drive are going to appreciate it.
I would agree.
So I need to hear how all of this is going to be controlled.
If I can testify how it will architecturally, again, it's going to be a 4-foot parapet for both fall protection and for continuity of the height around there, as you could, referring to the rear elevation again, which is A8. Again, there'll be a 4-foot parapet, which, again, unless somebody was standing there, you'd see 2 foot of a person, or any structures that they, umbrella or whatever. Again, other than that, it would be the homeowners association documentation that would control that. Architecturally, this is what we're providing.
And without seeing that agreement, if you were forced them to sign, we have no idea what we could possibly be approving here as it affects existing homeowners all around this thing.
Well,
Is there an existing ordinance about
do-
lighting these lights on your house? Is there a restriction?
I don't, I'm looking for that, I don't believe there is, but we don't have real lighting standards for parking lots, this and the other, but I don't believe we've come across a situation like that. I don't see anything. I certainly know that it's not there in the planning development code. I was looking for the police part of general codes. I don't see anything. But then again, we could have that as a condition of approval, have it in the homeowners association. The board should so desire.
I think it's a quality of life issue for everybody else around this thing. And I think we have to have safeguards in here that protect that quality of life that these people already have. For instance, people can set up a band and before you know it, you've got a radio station going.
so you're equivocating, you're making this equal to anybody else's outdoor area. So if they had a party with a band, they would have some limitations on it, just like any other resident, correct?
Look, there are noise ordinances
Already in place.
that, yeah.
So it's a 4-foot parapet all, so what, I'm agreeing with the chairman, right? So I'm thinking, okay, if we're out on the roof, and we take this option, it's a nice place to hang out, it's gonna be dark, right, without lights, so you gotta put up some kind of light structure in there. There's no permanent structure that I can see in your plan that would let you string lights across, right? So you either have to bring something and build it at least 6 feet high, right? Or you gotta go to Home Depot and get one of those lights on the stand, which are possibly 6 feet high, which, if you're living on the edge, to your point, right, you can shine down into other residents, right? So is it reasonable, and the question for the board, is it reasonable for us to put a stipulation of the HOA has to say, no lights above the parapet, as you do under deck lighting or whatever, but not put a Christmas tree there with a...
Well, there is the stair enclosure, right? So the stair enclosure has a door at the top. There's probably a light next to that door for safety reasons.
Now that height of that enclosure, that little canopy going up, that's what, 8 foot, 12 foot line maybe?
8 foot to the top.
8 foot, but what is the size of the total size approximately?
It's
8 by 8, 8 by 10?
stairs, like 4 by 10.
Like an outhouse.
Yeah, it's basically just, again, a stair enclosure with an angled roof, comes to a cap, where the door would come out. We only need enough room for, some 2-by structure and the door opening, which would be a 6 foot 8 door, 4 foot step down. What we have seen in other roof terrace options that we've done in other locations is they actually mount the lights on the inside of the parapet on the wall.
Which is what I was just saying. We have all kinds of ordinances or requirements that we have, Mr. Kiki, which says you can't have light spillage, for instance, anywhere. Your other lighting in the neighborhood, it has to shine down, etc. We've got to do the same kind of thing here, and like you're saying, any lighting for that roof has got to be below the parapet.
Correct, and when we do prepare the documentation for those options, there will be an electrical plan which indicates where those lights would be, and they will be placed in locations where there would not be light spillage outside of the parapet, other than, again, the one light that may be over the door, which is, again, that's
But that is one light in the middle of the building.
correct.
We'd have to be it's going to be a long way away to spot that.
I know,
It's going to look like a firefly, but it's the other. What we don't want is the homeowners indiscriminately deciding, oh, I can put up spotlights or whatever.
So the main thing, you have to have a ground fault system up there too, if you had any kind of emergency.
That's
So if they're putting a regular lamp in there, and they get, if it's still wet, not as wet as that, you're not going to get electrocuted. I mean, that's no sense.
Oh, we're not trying to electrocute our residents. But what I will say is,
Worry about electrocuting.
well, I do a little light to this whole discussion, but the bottom line is, our clients would be willing to submit a list of recommendations for these things. Quite frankly, I think a lot of what you're concerned about are significantly out of what would be considered normal or usual, and we'll certainly be willing to exclude that. Our clients already indicated that they're willing to go with all gas if everyone thinks that's safer. No problems from that. So we'll give you a list of what these homeowners can regulate in this, would regulate in that area. And so far, what I've heard you mention is concern about, well, we think we addressed the fall protection with the parapet, but you're lighting below the parapet line. We want to know that there aren't going to be any electronic billboards up there probably, although that's a good idea. Second, we mentioned gas for the grills. These are safety issues that our clients are in agreement with you. We don't want to create anything that's going to be a hazard because it could come back and make liability. So why don't we give you a form of what these homeowner documents could look like as it relates to this issue. Because we still have to be fully prepared to meet other requirements for the DCA and so forth, and they're reviewed by. And I think your ordinance calls for the review by the township. So we're either, well, whoever, one of your attorneys.
John, what you're suggesting is that you...
Give me an outline now.
Bullet point outline of what's intended, what's not allowed.
Yeah, try to address the safety issues that you're concerned with, because it's inherently what our clients are trying to do anyway. And, just not concerned that, they're not putting this up there because they think people are going to burn their house down. The opposite.
So thank you for that. And just to clarify, my one concern is not definitely a safety concern, you're addressing that. It is also, like the chairman said, it's a quality of life concern, not for your residents, but for the people who live there, right? So that's my question about the lighting is how, and it sounds like you could provide a list of how can we restrict somebody who lives on the edge over there from going to Home Depot, getting the 6-foot light and sticking down there, and it's fine for them, but it's shining into someone else.
Just like any ordinance or law that the town adopts, we can put these rules in place for the homeowners association. We expect compliance. If they don't, then there has to be some form of enforcement. And the town avoids enforcement if it goes through the homeowners association. And I can't tell you that somebody's going to go up there with a light. I expect somebody might. But we can put a rule in place that says they can't do that on a basis that causes any impact. And then we'll have a means to regulate it. So
you're willing to put that in the HOA rules?
We're doing that anyway, so we just didn't expect to do it at this stage of this, but we'll do it now and prepare for your review. And I don't mean you individually, but collectively, yes. You're certainly welcome to review it. So,
I have a question. Is 4 feet the height of the parapet? Is that an accepted height for safety for children if they're up on the roof? I mean, is there some standard that you're adhering to? Because 4 feet to me is high, but I'm not sure if it's high enough.
well, it's hard for me, but not for somebody that's that size.
Well, I'm just assuming if there's a mom there in a lounge chair reading a book and she's got her kids up there, would 4 feet be accepted? I mean, is there something that you looked at that says 4 feet is what it should be?
Yes, actually, the International Residential Code actually only requires 36 inches, so we're exceeding
Really?
that.
Okay.
The building code is 42, so we're actually exceeding the building, the commercial code in this case.
Okay. Because I was thinking you could put rails on top of it, and then they could pull themselves up, so that wouldn't be smart either. To me, 4 feet, I'm just thinking of my own kids and grandkids, and 4 feet to me isn't that high. But no, that's it, they say 36, and I'm sure they've done research.
Well, no, but wait, I thought I heard you say it's commercial.
If I said we're exceeding the commercial code, in fact,
The commercial code is the,
is like the international building code, which regulates like
what
multi-family.
is the height?
It's 42 inches.
For that
In the
property.
code, we're
In the
proposing
code.
48.
We're proposing 48, which exceeds the requirement of 36, which applies to this particular project.
But for commercial buildings, they're not expecting people hanging out out there.
When you say commercial buildings, you mean multi-family residence?
Anything that's not a single-family home or a townhome.
And so there is nothing out there for townhomes.
Yes, it's 36 inches, which I mentioned earlier.
36 inches.
Correct.
Doesn't seem like much. I think if you go to Brooklyn, you'll see higher walls because everything happens in Brooklyn. Nude sunbathing on the roofs. I'll be honest, that's what happens in Brooklyn. But I would worry about the safety concern.
We're not asking for apartments in the basement.
No, we're not. I'm just worried about the safety concern. This is new for Middletown, it really is.
Is that 42 inches or 36 inches, whatever, does that contemplate people being outside on that roof, on the flat part of the roof?
Yes, that's general fall protection for any situation where there's more than a 30-inch drop off.
But in general, though, some of these buildings people are going up there just to fix air conditioning units or, maintenance type issues, sweeping and things like that.
There are different regulations for that, and that's controlled by OSHA. So in a case where you would have, I digress and get up on a tangent, if you had a lower parapet, somebody that was a maintenance worker would have to have a tie-off per se. So there are regulations that are controlled by a completely different
The
entity.
standard is 42 inches,
It's 36 inches in
36
residential,
inches for this building,
42 for the commercial code, and we're providing 48.
36 for this building with occupancy of that decking of the roof deck.
Sure, it'd be the same as a deck or a engaged terrace, yes. Minimum 36 inches.
I think the question is, Jeremy, are you as a designer satisfied that 48 provides not just reasonable, but very good fall protection in this instance?
I am, again, you cannot stop a child from doing something like that, but 48 is a height that we felt was very reasonable. It's about chest high for a normal person. I'm 6 feet tall, about here.
Okay. Any other questions? Board?
My next question was, let's talk about the apartments, the affordable units. If we're ready to move to that?
Sure. We'll mark this exhibit A10. And this is depicting a typical elevation for one of the 3 COA buildings. Again, I mentioned there are 3 of these buildings. And I'm sure you're familiar with the A2 exhibits that are down in plan in the lower left-hand corner. Each building has, 2 buildings have 24 units, and the 3rd building, which is adjacent to the top lot, which is the one that's parallel to the road between the commercial and residential development, has 22 units, total of 70. The reason why there's less units in that building is on the ground floor, there is a resident amenity as well as a leasing office, maintenance office. So this elevation...
But all 3 buildings are doing basically the same.
They'll look essentially the same. Maybe the door is a little bit different on the one building just because it's, again, going to be used for a leasing office, like a glass door, as opposed to just a normal residential door. So the character of these buildings, I would characterize...
You're clicking and driving us crazy. And it's just all over the system.
I'm sending Morse code signals.
That's perfect. So in any case, what we've done here is, again, bring over similar materials as I showed on the exhibit, I believe A9, so we would use the same siding materials. We would have bays that would be, again, fiber cement, cementitious trim, decorative trim, window treatments, asphalt main roof, metal roof on the lower level of the front, as well as accents, varying grill patterns. Again, we wanted to bring the materials over, so a brick color that you may see on one of the townhome buildings would be the same brick color on these buildings. So again, they're 3 stories, 8 units per floor in general, walkouts, access for a stair. There are a variety of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that comply with the code regulations for distribution of units. Run from anywhere in the high 700s to the just over 1,100 square feet for the 3 bedroom units.
We also have a plan for the community center.
That's correct. If you're familiar again with A2 as to where this is located, and I think Mr. Kennedy talked extensively about that at the last meeting. So I'm going to mark this as Exhibit A11, which is the clubhouse plan.
As you're doing that, these are prepared by Barton Partners. So before you had testified that your office internally had prepared the other exhibits.
They did.
These are prepared by an outside architect?
Yes, we very typically employ what we call consulting architectural and engineering firms to do work that my office cannot provide just based on volume. It's very typical for us to do that. We actually, when we contract them, we retain ownership, review all the documentation, and again, permitted and marketed just like anything else.
So even though this was performed by an outside architectural firm, it was under your direction?
That's correct, and again, very familiar with multifamily and clubhouse construction as well. Actually used to work for this firm, so in any case, so if you're, we can go back to this with questions. If not, the plan here that I marked as Exhibit A11 is the clubhouse plan. It's about a little over 4,200 square feet, 42. Let's see, my notes. I'm sorry, 4723 conditioned space. There is an outdoor covered area that I'm pointing to here that is back off a fire pit, and the outdoor kitchen, which we will have in this clubhouse. And the general layout is you come into a vestibule, you have a lobby with displays. To your left would be a formal club room. Straight ahead would be a lounge game room. There would be an office for the homeowners association. This would be where they would most likely meet. There is also an exercise area to the right in plan, as well as the toilet and shower facilities for the pool and pool deck area, which is located immediately behind it. I will move to Exhibit A12, which is a rendering of the clubhouse. So what you see here is a little different stylistically. It's more like what we call a modern farmhouse. But again, we're bringing in very similar elements, metal roof, same shingle style, just a little bit of a different character here because it's obviously the thing that's going, one of the things that's going to define the look and feel of the community, where residents are going to be coming quite often to use the pool facility as well as for the gatherings, homeowners meetings, and whatnot.
All right, Jeremy, do you have any information, for example, the
Sure. Again, much like the other buildings, we'll have masonry, which will tie through. We represent stone here. As we get into design, it may end up being, there will be some brick accents, cast stone accents that you would also see in the townhouse buildings. Again, horizontal siding of the same nature as you would see in the other buildings. And in this case, we do add some vertical siding just to kind of give it that little farmhouse feel. It's very trendy style right now that we're seeing, actually bringing into New Jersey with a lot of our products. Again, just a variety of different styles gives a real organic nature to the look of the overall development.
I have a question for you, and I don't know if you can answer it. Your initial iteration, which came to us about 5 months ago, you had the same type of plan for your co-homes.
Correct.
But you did offer for the other homes more of a traditional setup. This is not yours, but I think maybe you could answer. Was there a reason why you dropped the traditional to go with more of a contemporary look? Because I'm finding this as a transitional, it's not quite traditional, but it's a transitional look.
I think transitional is an accurate term, and as you know, we've been at this for some time, and at this point, those designs are a couple of years old, and what we're seeing in the market is that there's more of a demand from buyers for a little bit more of a
And this
transitional
looks
look.
19th century. Okay, I just wanted to know where you came from.
And we actually, they're more subtle, but we did make some modifications to the elevations of the affordable buildings as well, to kind of carry through that, some of those details, although they're a little bit more subtle than some of the changes that were made to the townhouses.
Each of these buildings, townhouses, the apartments, and the clubhouse all have a common theme.
Yeah, each one, to some degree, has its own character, but at the same time, there are certain elements that tie them all together. Just a couple of examples, you can see there's a standing seam roof detail on the clubhouse building, and that detail carries through to the affordable material choices. We have brick and siding for the townhouses, and you can see we carry over the brick and siding, the affordability of the windows, etc.
On the clubhouse, I know that's an angled thing, but in the previous packet we had just front-facing elevation. Are the two peaks on the ends, the triangle pieces, are they intended to be a different height, or is that just that part of the elevation you provided separately?
Yeah, it's actually, these would actually be lower than the main roof.
I think you're asking about the street, are the peaks the same height?
Correct. The peak on the right, or the
Exactly.
elevation is lower
Does
than
the board member see the perspective on the photo, or is there a different height?
Yeah, I recognize the perspective of the photo previously provided a front elevation. I don't know if it's out of scale, is it, or it looks like they're different heights.
They're the same height.
They're the same height.
Yeah, that's the same roof structure in that two-dimensional drawing as what you see here in the 3D rendering. It's just the perspective that makes one part of the other.
Well, I'll say they look different on the front facing one, so I just, I'm asking.
They do, because the actual adjacent front to back roof structures are slightly different. If I'm looking at what you're referring to, which may have been dated back in
The one I was in
May 15, 2019.
Yep.
Yeah, the elevation on the left-hand side that you're looking at, that connector piece, that roof is lower because that's actually less deep, so it would bring the peak down, but the actual gable heights themselves are the same.
Okay, well, you were saying for the symmetry.
Yeah, it implies symmetry, may not be perfectly symmetrical based upon the space, the height will be less.
Folks who live in these price fixed homes, there's no restriction for them to use the clubhouse. I mean, it's all within, they don't have to pay a fee to go to that clubhouse, do they?
They don't pay a fee because they're not part of the homeowners association. So there would be a homeowners association for the townhouses, which would charge a fee to cover exterior maintenance of the common elements and the management of the clubhouse and the amenities around the clubhouse. And then the affordable buildings, which are rentals, would be owned by a separate entity and managed by that entity. And there's a recreation area inside of one of the affordable buildings. You see that on the plan. And there's also a top lot in the exterior space surrounding that building.
As well as separate trash removal.
Last year, it was clear that
It's an economic issue. Or, you know, you can't pay the full rent. You have to pay for the maintenance. So we're trying to make it something that's usable and affordable, which is very typical in these types of projects.
Not that it's relevant to this application, but just based on my experience doing affordable housing, not just for this municipality, but all over the state, from an administrative perspective, what Mr. Thomas said, the economics makes sense because we've had so many units in the past where the homeowners association called the town saying that the income certified units, they cannot keep up with the homeowner association fees because those keep increasing as years pass by. So that's, you know, there's some sense to the economics that he's talking about.
We would like to be very affordable to that. But most buildings don't have elevators, correct?
That is correct.
So handicap access is limited to the first floor.
Yes, the first floor units would have to be handicap compliant. The upper floors are not required.
They're not required. There's rectangles, et cetera, here that are showing is more space for 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, et cetera. There doesn't appear to be storage facilities within the buildings, are there?
There is not.
Where people put stuff?
Within their unit.
Where do you put a bicycle?
Good question. I don't know if those would be possibly be bike racks. I don't know. But yeah, there are no garages, private garages. There are no private storage areas.
Is that typical, Sam?
No, it's not. Typically, they do provide it, what we call, we approved townhome development not too long ago. One of my questions there was, where is the storage for these units? And they had provided storage for that. I have a question. When you said that these upper floors, elevators are not required by building code, is that what it is?
Correct.
I see.
Yeah, typically that's activated when you use a 4 stories.
And by the way, the total intent to install bike racks, if they were left off, we'll make sure they do them.
Is the storage required? I do recall
No, it's not required by code, but we had asked that the redevelopment plan, by what strict application the redevelopment plan or even underlying these, so there is no requirement for storage. So we can't enforce it. So what it would be, it would be a courtesy from the developer, pretty much, yeah. Like, I believe that was a different zone, there were different regulations for that particular development, but this, there is nothing about storage.
Any other questions?
Does the mechanical area in each apartment, do they have storage room in that? Usually it's a small water heater and a small, I don't know if they have a central heating system. Do you have a central heating system for these apartments, or each apartment has its own heating unit?
Each apartment has its own heating unit.
So they might have a small heating unit and a small hot water heater in there that possibly could be used as storage. I don't know.
Yeah, allows you to put a washer and dryer in there also. That's not storage.
Well, there's actually a separate laundry
They do have a
dryer.
separate washer and dryer. They have a laundry room for every one of these, I think.
Yeah, and there is a mechanical closet where you would have your hot water
Or you
heater.
have, so you have a separate room for each one of these apartments, for each one of these renderings.
where would the air conditioning, like in that suite, be? The outside or?
They would be outside. Typically, yeah, size under, that certainly could not be
And are they shared among different units or?
individual. So each unit would have its own air conditioning and heating system.
Okay, so in the back there would be how many apartments?
There's 8 floors, so 24 in a typical building, so there would be 24 condensers that way.
On the back side of it.
These all have sprinkler systems on the floors.
This is fully sprinkled under the building code, yes.
Have you figured out the noise 24 units make out there? Per building, times 3.
In noise in relationship to one another or to?
No, in relation to the total amount of noise going on a hot day.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I can speak to the sound attenuation between the units themselves as required by code, but not for how the buildings will be occupied.
Sam, you do not need any generator, emergency generators for COA units now?
There's no requirement.
No requirement, okay.
You mentioned there's a tot lot. Is there anything else exterior behind the co-units for entertainment for the residents?
I'm putting up exhibit, which was 82 from the last meeting that Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Plumey referred to. No, there's I'm pointing down here in the lower left-hand corner, labeled Valor Court. The tot lot is facing this, the L3 building, which has the amenity and the leasing office in it. To your right-hand side is where the tot lot would be located. There's just simply green space and landscaping buffer around the perimeter of the buildings.
Do you have an elevation of the rear of the co-units?
And we have not prepared that yet.
What,
The architectural features that you see on the front of the building which carry through to the back. Typically, there would be a little bit less brick on the back of the building than there was on the front. But, in terms of the overall design of the building would carry across the back as well.
there's no deck option in the back?
That's correct.
No decks on these buildings.
Are the COA units available, is Gideon Drive, which is one of the main streets here, there are a whole bunch of parking spaces. Are those open to the COA units, or the COA units will only inside their own area?
I believe from the previous testimony, only the parking spaces within the Valor Court are dedicated to the COA residents.
And those are actually
And the testimony did demonstrate that parking area was in compliance for that portion of the project, that component.
You recall, there's too much variance between the development.
Yeah, I would just like to note as well that, again, referring to A2 along Gideon Drive, there actually is a retaining wall.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's a barrier, physical barrier. Any other questions? I'm assuming.
Well, I have one other question, because at the last hearing, the board had some questions about the size of the garage and the townhouse units. It was in my notes, and I failed to ask Jeremy that question when he was speaking of those. With your permission, I'll ask him that.
We go over this before the prep meeting. Yeah, so there was a question that was brought up, I don't know if it was addressed again. I will address, I'm referring to Exhibit A6, which is Plan 2, dated today. These garages in these units, because of the fact that they're 51 feet deep, which is extra deep in our, we actually go down to as shallow as 42 in some of our products. But having the 51 feet here allows us to have a 23-foot clear garage. Our typical garage is somewhere around 19.7 to 20'7". So you actually have about 3.5 additional feet at the location between the unfinished area and the conditioned space, where you could put storage, trash recycling, and in fact the plan shows an area that's under in a sloped ceiling as the stair goes up again, capitalizing on that additional space that residents would be able to put those receptacles so that they weren't visible to the public.
There was, the question was, would the garbage cans be outside all the time, and was there adequate storage? And it was designed into the garage.
That is correct.
And the height of the garages will accommodate a large SUV, I take it?
They're actually, the first floors are 9 feet.
Okay.
What restricts is the size of the door, not the size, interior size of the garage. I suspect a 7 or an 8-foot door.
These will be, well, yes, they're 16 feet wide, and I believe there'll be 8-foot doors.
Which means they not.
Depending on the
Yeah,
entry.
exactly. Exactly.
Gary, is there any other affirmative information you want to bring to the board's attention?
I don't, other than I just wanted to know, which I did not address earlier, but was addressed in the previous testimony, that all of the buildings, the clubhouse building, the co building, and the townhouse units meet all of the height and story requirements of redevelopment.
I have no other direct questions for Mr. Green.
Any other questions from the board? What was that exciting time? From the public, any questions to this witness, actually both witnesses, on what's been presented by them this evening? Whoa. First, I didn't call on you, first of all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because there was the guy in the back.
All the way far left.
Far left, all the way back. Who was the first to get his hand up? Remember, this is questions on testimony.
Yes, well, I don't know if it's just a question or a reaction
So
to.
first, we're going to start with your name.
Well, you really want to know who I am. My name is Barrett Tito, I live at Shady Oaks.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Tito, T-H-I-E-L-E, first name Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T-T.
So let me swear you in just because you're going to lapse into saying testimony rather than just asking questions. The purpose of this is to ask questions, not give testimony.
And I'm not saying it.
Just as a precaution, please raise your right hand.
Yes.
Swear testimony about the board, all truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
It's really just for questions.
Okay, the first question I have doesn't relate to the testimony here so much as to the project itself. I'm curious to know, since this is part of the redevelopment plan for the Route 35 area, and this is a particular part of that plan, whether this is covered by the pilot agreement or not,
There is no pilot agreement.
for this.
As we speak, Mr. Junko, it was my understanding that there's no pilot agreement for any portion of it. That's not to say there might not be one.
The affordable project does have a
Pilot.
as all affordable projects do. Well, it doesn't have it yet.
It will.
But the residential units, the market rate units are not.
Okay, so it's just the portion that is the affordable part.
Only affordable.
Okay. And the other, then I'll just make an observation regarding the actual presentation here. I travel all over the country, and I've been in New York many, many times, and I've seen a lot of architecture. And I just want to remark that I think this is very uninspiring. I think it probably needs all kinds of
Excuse me, the question is?
My question is, can't we do a better job than this?
Yes.
I think it's more for a lot of individual calls to respond to. Feel free.
True.
No comments.
Okay.
Our clients who think, no, I have no comment. Our clients put a lot of effort into this. They think they put a very marketable and attractive project together. And we hope that there's enough people who will buy it.
Allison Brady, I have a question.
Allison Brady.
Yes.
Let me, this is where you, please raise your right hand, swear to testify about to be the board, which will hold you for the truth of the God.
In the affordable housing part,
You're gonna have to
You gotta get closer to that mic, please.
in the affordable housing part, where will they dispose of their trash? And where will it be stored?
I'm again referring to A2, this is previous testimony. There are 3 enclosures located within Valley Court, one for each building, where they would place the trash.
Maybe like dumpsters?
They'd be dumpsters and recycling containers that are within the enclosure, yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You're gonna work front or back?
Hi, Laura Patton, 23 Carriage Drive,
Just spell your last name, please.
P-A-T-T-E-N.
Please raise your right hand, swear to testify about to be the board, which will hold you for the truth of the God.
Yep. If units are not sold prior to finished building, are the decks going to be built? You said the deck was an option.
Typically what happens is we will, a certain number of homes, and again, Matt can correct me, because I've been doing this place as long as I have for Toll Brothers. Say for example, that a 5-unit building was 3 units were sold. Typically at that point, that's sort of our tipping point of what we would start the construction drawing process, the permit application process, and typically the other units are spec'd out. So there could be, if say deck options are popular, yes, there could be a deck placed on an unsold, which we call a quick delivery home.
Okay, so then the same would probably apply for the roof terrace option?
That is correct, yes.
On the roof terrace option, you said the stair enclosure, I thought initially you said 10 feet high, and then they're 8 feet high, so...
10 feet in I was asked 2 different dimensions, and I said it would be approximately 4 foot wide by 10 foot long in the direction of the plan.
Okay.
But it would be probably about 8 foot from the top of the roof.
Okay, and that'll be directly in the middle of each of the units, essentially?
Yes, I'm referring to Exhibit A6. The stair is located on the interior party wall where it lands, and is nearly in the very center of the unit.
So essentially though, it would be 1 per unit, so if you have a 5-unit and each of them exercise the roof deck option, there's going to be 5 outlets.
That is correct.
Okay. And I know it's obviously not shown in the render, but is there any rendering that you have in one of your packages perhaps that's going to show, because obviously I live on Carriage Drive, so these buildings are going to be towering over my backyard. I imagine at some point I'm going to be seeing that protrusion of the top.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are shown in a way that does not depict them. I do not believe that from ground level you're going to see them where they're located in the building. First of all, you have a 4-foot parapet that's going to be screening your site angle. Then you're also 39 feet to the top of the roof, another 4-foot parapet. I very much doubt, I can't say with 100% certainty that you'll probably even see that structure.
Okay, that 39 feet is from ground level to the top of the roof.
It's actually I believe, the finished, the final grade around the building to the top, the uppermost point of the flat roof. So in this case, we've calculated it to be around 39 feet, knowing that we'll have some variety in grade.
Right, so like behind my house, for example, my understanding is there'll be a 10 to 12 foot pile of dirt that you'll be building on top of, so it'll be possibly 10 to 12 feet and then 39 feet up. Is that my understanding correctly?
In addition to the parapet, yes. If that's consistent with the prior testimony by Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, that's my understanding and also my prior meeting with them. The flat roof was, someone had said, to provide additional living space, which is just a little confusing, and obviously I'm not an architect or part of the planning board either, but my understanding was that the redevelopment ordinance said you could build 4 stories up, and I understand that these are 3 stories. Is the roof deck not considered the 4th story because there's no ceiling on it?
That is correct. And the fact that there's no habitable or occupiable space.
Okay, even though it is technically
Yeah,
space that they can.
the residential code as well as the ordinance do exempt stair enclosures as long as there's no ancillary or additional space, which I was just describing.
Okay. And then that 4-story max, I don't know if this is part of a question about the redevelopment. The 4-story max, was there just a 4-story building, or is there an actual number in height attached to that?
There was 4 stories and 45 feet.
4 stories
And again, that 45 feet is measured a number of different ways depending on how the units would have been designed. In this particular case, the 45 feet is to the uppermost point of the flat roof, which in our case we calculated to be around 30 feet.
Okay.
Less the parapets.
So 39 feet, and then if you're building on 12 foot of dirt, that's,
51.
I mean, maybe I just don't understand how that works, I guess. Wouldn't that exceed?
The number of stories and the height is regulated by, I believe, the structure itself, not to the surrounding fill or grade or landscaping or whatnot.
Are there any elevations that show the backyard, back unit? I know you showed what the back unit actually looks like, but my understanding is that it's going to be, the actual grass and below it is just going to be sloping right down into all the residents that live along Parish Drive. Like beyond this, my understanding is it's just going to be a downhill.
In some locations, yes, and again, if the engineer can speak to that more effectively.
The testimony from the grading was given at the risk.
No, I understand that. I was here and there wasn't no big
Well,
difference
yes,
then,
yes.
so. Well, it's not really, yeah. My backyard gets flooded, I guess that'll be.
Big City Township.
And perhaps this is a question for the board up here. A lot of the questions were answered with it'll be up to the homeowners association with regards to size of decks, grills, bathtubs, what's allowed on the deck or the rooftop. Who's in charge of this regulation, and do you guys have any say in it, or is this just something between the builder and whoever the homeowners association is? Because a lot of the questions just seem to be pushed off as, well, that'll be up to the homeowners association. So, as you pointed out, quality of life, I live there, and I have a young son who plays in the backyard all the time, so obviously it's a great concern what goes on top, what's going to be shining in my backyard, you know. So who makes those decisions?
Well, you heard us, the board, ask for all of this, and Mr. Junko and the gentleman from Toll Brothers agreed that they were going to give us, Mr. Gorman described as bullet points as to what is going to be covered in this homeowners association agreement, etc. So we get to see what's in there and whether we believe it's sufficient to.
So no decisions will be made until you guys get that documentation?
Well, I'm not making a decision until I get it, so.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay, I guess that's just it. Obviously, I live on Carriage Drive, so my life and my family is going to be impacted by this build for 5, 8, 10 years, however long it takes, and it's going to be done in phases.
What lot are you on the parish?
I am. Lot 36. 135, sorry.
Pretty much in the middle of it.
Exactly, that's
Okay.
smack in the middle. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, right there.
Hello, Tara Plumbing, 49 Brandywine Way. Not sure who the question should go to, but for the affordable housing unit, is there any option for them to be not all together? Like maybe one year, like it's kind of built throughout the community as opposed to rebuilding all together?
So, as I mentioned earlier, there is a homeowners association for the townhomes, and the affordable buildings are actually rental buildings. They're owned by, not by, obviously, the buyers of the townhouses, they're owned by a different owner who will operate the affordable rentals. And because of that, they're not interdispersed. As Mr. Junko mentioned, there are economic reasons why the affordable housing provider doesn't want to be paying the HOA dues that the market rate townhouse buyers pay. And
Well, I'm
because they're not,
asking if they could be just not built all together, or if they could, it's not their, I'm not saying one should be built in Florida, I was saying in the same development, just not all together, so they're not just close together. And if also, my second question is, I'm not sure if I heard this correctly, but for that tonight's clubhouse there, the townhouses,
Yes.
that looks pretty nice. They could use that, right? They're allowed to use that pool and that club.
so this is the homeowners association's clubhouse, and the fees that the members of the homeowners association, being the townhouse owners, pay go towards, among other things, operation and maintenance of that clubhouse. Because the affordable units are not part of the homeowners association, they have their own recreation space inside one of these buildings.
That's a slide, with a swing, or some kind of a, something for little kids.
There's a top light outside, but there's a space, there's an indoor space inside one of the buildings as well.
It's not like that.
No, it's not.
So would there be an option, I mean, I understand you're saying it's affordable, so they can pay the fee or what have you, but do they pay, or opt in, like, do they have, at least have a choice? Just if they wanted to pay a fee? I mean, I just feel like that's not a good situation. You know, the whole point to me of this affordable housing is to integrate all kinds of people into a community, right? So if you're doing this, you're defeating the purpose of that. And I looked on the fair housing guidelines, you know, and they said you're really not supposed to do that. And it's not.
Hold on a second, I have to object to this. What version of the fair housing guidelines?
I don't know, I found it online, it was really hard to find, and I printed it out, and then I can't find it anyplace. So I'll have to find it again, but it's not what's on the fair house, it defeats the purpose of what the affordable housing is meant to do. I understand you're providing housing, but you're not, that is not the purpose of that, right?
The reason that those rules were changed was because it was too expensive for the residents to even live in the affordable units when those other fees were assessed. So that's why this has become the means to achieve the affordable housing development. We're only following the fixed exact regulations of the
I know you're following the regulations, that's not, like maybe the letter of the law, but I don't think it's the spirit of it. And if you're charging a reduced housing, right, say the need for a reduced cost of housing, if you need to charge a reduced fee to be in the HOA, I mean, I just think this is not a good situation. You know, I mean, you want these people to be friends and doing things together and being one community, that's not going to achieve that. And I'm just saying that's very, that's what you call, you know, you're following the law, but it's not ethical and it's not moral. I understand there's fees and people have to pay fees,
I gotta
but they
stop
can
you
pay
here.
a reduced fee.
I gotta stop you here, because you're into nothing to do with their testimony.
They just testified to that.
And you are now deep into personal opinion.
I'm not
Whether
asking the question if they have an option to pay a fee.
Could you answer that question?
No, there's no option to pay.
That's correct. That's the answer.
There is not an option to pay the fee.
For shame on you.
Because
Being available at an affordable rate, I think that
We'll
that's
charge
not.
a reduced rate.
We're not
Shame on
picking you
you.
up from back there, but there's another issue. You got up, you started quickly, we didn't swear you in. So you were asking questions, I didn't want to interrupt. But as you went into testimony, as you sworn, please just stand there, raise your right hand, swear testimony you give the board, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please raise your right hand, swear testimony about the board, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Your name?
Warren Howe, I live at 41 Colony Drive.
Can you spell your last name?
Houck. The rooftop there. What's the height that is someone was there? That you're-
Which portion of the roof are you referring to? The stair enclosure or
Yeah,
the parapet?
like right there. If you were,
This location here is where we would measure to the top of the flat roof, so that's about 39 feet finished grade. And we're proposing a 4-foot additional, either in some cases a decorative railing, and in other cases along the sides and the rear, for minimum 4-foot parapet.
and when you're up there, you have access to the entire roof to walk around.
Above your unit, yes. The other units have.
So you can walk to the back, what I'm getting at, you can walk to the back and peer over into the backyards of Carrots Lane.
You can look over outside the back of your unit, yes.
At 39 feet in there. Is it possible, because it looks like there's about 40 units that line up out of the 280. Would it be possible to not offer a rooftop terrace option on those units?
I don't believe so. That's what I'm speaking for my client. It would be an option that's available to any prospective homeowner.
Okay, my representative would be opinion on it. It just seems, the design here, you've got people at a low level, now you have to see level, which, all right.
Yes, sir. On the aisle.
Steve Gunnison, 11 Carriage Drive, Middletown.
Spell your last name, please.
Gunneso. One of the big things that
Please
concerns
raise your
me.
right hand, swear testimony about the board, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, is with this rooftop terrace. What are going to be the ordinances with noise? I mean, that concerns me to the point at night. Elevation of 39 feet. It's not the same when you're doing, let's say you're having a party in your backyard on the ground floor level. It's going to produce such sound, three stories up. It's going to have a huge magnification. So where are the parameters as far as noise? How long people are going to be able to stay out there at night? That worries me. Windows open, I'm going to hear people out there making parties out there. God knows what's going to happen about that. It's bad enough looking at a 3-story building. It's another thing hearing noise on top of the rooftop. We don't have anything kind of like that. So I'd like for the township to consider that not happening up against Carriage Lane, Carriage Drive.
So there are existing noise ordinances in town. I don't know exactly what they require. Stan, I don't know if that's something that you can weigh in on. Yeah. But whether you're on the ground, on a first floor deck, or on a roof deck, there are restrictions regarding noise, time of day, etc.
But again, we have nothing in our town like that.
This is a new factor.
Right. So it's something I'd like the township committee members to consider when they put a vote to this thing about that terrace up against Carriage Drive. All right, thank you.
So there are 44 units up against Carriage Drive.
I know.
Thomas Ronick, 6 Oxford Lane, Middletown.
Can you spell your last name?
R-O-N-K 2.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to testify about this ordinance, motion discussed.
My question is regarding affordable housing, the dumpsters. Who's going to be responsible for maintaining the dumpsters?
I'm going to make an educated guess here, but it will be the operator of the affordable rental complex who will be responsible for the maintenance and all of the trash removal and upkeep of any of the facilities within the affordable housing portion of the project.
What I understand that it should be fenced in.
Yes, there will be an enclosure with a gate.
In many other locations where it's fenced in, there's always garbage outside the dumpster. You said that
It will be the responsibility of
How can it be enforced that it will be properly disposed in a recycled container, not outside?
that's, I can't really testify to that.
Speaking of the affordable units,
Right.
yeah, it's a multi-family configuration. There's 3 dumpster locations. Trash is to be dropped there by each apartment residence in the normal course of the day.
But very, very often in other locations, the cover, it's not covered, or there is a cover, but it's never put in place, and it's garbage all over.
Well, there is a management on site, and the management company is owns the company that will own these buildings will also manage and administer. It's in their best interest, just like it's anybody's, to make sure that the trash is properly disposed of. The site plan is providing all of those aspects for it, and I can only represent you. I can't imagine that these managers aren't going to want to manage this project, collect trash, and make sure it gets into the dumpsters. That's pretty standard. And if they didn't, and someone made a complaint, then that certainly is enforceable by any level by the township.
My last question is, why dumpsters, why not issue a garbage can like all the other ones?
Well, because it's the multi-family unit, the building, there are people on the 2nd and 3rd floors, and they would have to take the cans up and down, and that's not really reasonable. The way these projects typically come, residential in an apartment project, particularly a 3-story walk-up like this, that trash is collected in one location, and it's part of what is included in the rental payment by the affordable tenants. Because one of the obligations that our clients have to develop the project, and then the operators have to operate it, is that they generate, that don't cause any unreasonable generation of costs, so that this remains in the affordable category for the eligible residents. And they have, as long as they meet those residents, the concept is they will go there until they exceed the income requirements and then move into a market rate of housing. So what these projects try to do is to limit those costs, to put it within a reasonable budget for the eligible residents. And there's a whole income requirement that's administered by the township to determine who's eligible to live in these units. It's not even up to Toll Brothers or the operator. It's entirely up to the administrative agency of the municipality, which may or may not be done here, be done countywide also.
Usually, any resident would be from our database. So who administers it would be decided later. It's either my office or maybe a private, I mean, that's at a later stage. However, whoever will be in those units will be from our database. That's it is satisfying our affordable housing obligation that has been put upon us by the state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Who went first?
My name is Steve Ungermiller. I'm on 47 Carriage Drive.
Could you spell your last name? Could you spell your last name?
Got a lot of pencil? HUNGERVUHLER.
Please raise your right hand. Swear testimony about to give the board the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
My question is, going off some of these other residents on Carriage Drive. Number one, I missed a lot of these meetings, but I'm in the community, so I talk a lot to what's going on here, but the 10-foot build-up that you're talking about, building up the earth and then putting the buildings on top, why are you doing that?
That is the civil engineering testimony that was at the last meeting. Mr. Green is not involved in the elevation, you're not involved in the grading.
Everyone here is asking about the height. I'm trying to understand why the buildup. We have a water issue on Carriage Drive now. I live at the low end. All right, I'd like to know how the runoff's going to be handled there and why it's being built up in the first place.
This was the testimony that was put on at the last meeting.
You asking me to come back another day?
Well,
No,
I'm just trying to tell you that it was addressed.
That there was
And cross-examination will have
testimony already.
Okay.
You weren't here, obviously.
I'm sorry, I wasn't. Okay, all right, so can we go to properties along Carriage Drive now? With these rooftop, whatever you want to call them? Why can't these buildings be 2 stories on the perimeter, number one? And if you're gonna go to 3 stories, all right, why is there a rooftop? Why can't, I heard somebody else ask, we possibly consider not putting these, additions on a rooftop.
Right.
Obviously, everybody believes that this isn't, is a problem here. Why can't we address
Part of
it?
the issue is that the market rate units are means whereby the affordable units are paid for. And this product is projected to generate enough revenue so that this developer can pay everybody to do the work and still pay for the affordable units to be built.
That wasn't the question.
That's not the question.
The question was, why can't you have 2 stories? You can't have the market price would not merit being able to support the project.
So it's all about the money, you're saying. You're talking about the community here. I'm addressing it with the board and asking for consideration for all the residents that live along that corridor.
Well, it has to be a viable project, but also the redevelopment plan, which was already approved by the town, permits the roof terraces and permits townhouses up to 4 stories versus the 3 that's being proposed here.
And density.
And a
It
higher
would permit up to 350 townhouses and proposed to 280. It's a much smaller project than what we're doing.
You're still not giving any consideration to the residents that are living around this so-called smaller project.
The project was designed to meet all the standards of the ordinance. It doesn't seeks 1 variance for grading along Kings Highway East and maintaining the buffer. No variance is requested.
I've been a resident of Middletown for 41 years, in that house for 25 years. I gotta tell you, I came to Middletown because of all of the reasons that are happening here, all right? The reason I'm in this town is because this building wasn't happening, all right? I think there's gotta be more consideration to the residents, the community in general, to talk about having affordable housing and not having them part of the community. It's not Middletown. I think someone's got to look at it as a whole and what Middletown is all about. There's a lot of other issues. I'm trying to just...
Along Carriage Lane, our client's engineers testified that in between the edge of the units and the property line, they are proposing a berm and landscaping with even enhanced size of the trees. You're going to have a very substantial buffer, was the testimony that was presented. It was attempted to make it acceptable throughout the community and to not impose an impact on any individuals.
Well, today? I don't know where all that runoff's going. I have no idea.
The one thing they can't do is dump it over into carriage drive. And there's been engineering testimony to that our township engineer goes through all of that stuff. Bottom line, they can't put 2 cups of water down a carriage drive.
Well, I hope you're right, because somebody will be coming back and knocking on your door if you're wrong.
It's not me, it's the engineering that is provided by them and reviewed by the township engineers.
Okay. And I know it's probably not for sure, but any idea what these property values are going to be? Selling prices of the units?
Yeah, we expect the townhouses to be in the 600s.
I can afford them. And how long does the project take?
Now, good question. We don't know for sure, but it's projected to be a 5-year.
Yeah, approximately 5-year time.
So what gets started first?
Well, the first thing is the connector along the bottom of the plan. And then there's a phasing plan that was presented at the last meeting that provided for various phases to be built. And one of those conditions had to do with the affordable units, because there's a ratio that has to be in place. And our clients are proposing that by the time we get to 50% of the market rate units constructed, 100% of the affordable units will be constructed. If the market is strong and they sell 280 units in 1 year, the project will be built in 18 months. That's not likely.
But just to give you a sense, phase 1 of that plan that was presented at the last hearing is in this area here, near the house.
Which lot are you on the carriage?
I'm on 47, I don't know what my lot number is.
No.
I only look at that when I pay my taxes.
That's what all of us do. Because I suspect
I'm
most
on the bottom, I'm the second from the last house, I'm on the cul-de-sac, so.
you're down the bottom.
Yeah, so that's where all the wet stuff is.
So you're going to see this as phase 6, according to their provided phase 1.
And keep in mind, a phase number doesn't mean it would actually be the same. So it would be built in first look at the concentration.
All right, I'm sorry, just the previous answer you gave, the townhouses are around about 600. What is the roof deck option cost?
We haven't finalized option pricing.
Can you estimate based on other projects that are similar in other states?
Maybe 30,000, rough guess.
Well, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Allison Sheehy, S-H-E-E-H-Y. You stated that outdoor living, outdoor entertainment is a big trend, correct? Oh.
Your testimony that they will do what we got?
Yes. You stated that outdoor entertainment, outdoor living is a trend, correct?
I would say it's probably the most popular trend in our industry right now.
Right. So I don't, and I'm sorry I haven't showed up for many of the meetings, but that doesn't mean I don't care. I have 2 children, dinner time, bedtime. So we do care, we just can't get it.
Where is the outdoor living space then, or outdoor entertainment green space for everyone that can't afford the HOA? Please, I mean,
For the affordable?
yeah.
As I previously testified, there is no dedicated outdoor space other than the top lot. It's a small playground area. I don't know exactly the dimensions, but it's about the building.
Sorry, I just asked how small, because it looks pretty small. For how many people are going to be living there?
There are going to be 22 units, 24 units, 25
Right,
units,
so
27.
Correct, so Approximately how many people in each?
Well, they're 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. I would say generally they average out at 2 bedrooms.
But how many people? How many family members?
I would not.
So I guess the point is, are we able to add more green space to this plan?
Actually, this did come up at the last hearing, and we were asked to add a walking trail with picnic tables, and that's something that we agreed to do.
Okay, but what about for kids? I have kids, you know, playing frisbee, playing ball, like, where do they do that? There's nothing here for them. Just something for the board to consider. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'm here on the Logan matter. Based on the hours.
It's 11 o'clock.
Exactly the hour I agreed to speak and yes, it will be carried for the October meeting.
I'm sorry.
We asked it to be carried to the October 2nd meeting,
Yes.
but I would like your attorney, if you'd be so kind, to accept the service of publication so that we would not have to further notice.
Review the affidavit of publication, the affidavit of service in order, they don't have to publish, they don't have to send out any notices. It's carried at 6:30 on October 2nd without further notice.
Thank you.
And that is the G. Logan Construction.
That is correct, sir.
So if anybody is still here for them, it's on for October 2nd.
Anybody on that?
Yes, all the way back.
Diane Millicent, 5 Westminster Lane.
Just pull your last name, please.
MILLIS1,
I'm sorry, Luke.
5 Westminster Lane.
Please raise your right hand. Swear testimony that you report
Yes. So I'm wondering if you guys looked at the other architecture homes on Kings Highway East before coming up with this plan? Because there's a lot of like old, nice homes, and this looks ridiculous and like apartments. Even the townhomes across actually look like homes, kind of.
Yeah, again, we chose particular styles and trends that we felt that they were
To pay
remarkable.
$600,000 for something that looks like an apartment, when you're paying $800,000 for a nice single family on Tanglewood Estates or whatever that was just built like a block or two down.
Again, I can speak to what we feel is a marketable.
And they're $300,000 across the street. I don't think these are sellable. These look like apartments. They look ugly.
The board can't decide anything.
They just
based on-
decide if it actually gets built, right?
I'm sorry?
You decide if it actually gets built.
It has to pass the board, yes, to be built.
So you do decide, kind of.
Well, not based on
You guys would decide all the other Toll Brothers developments, basically, right?
But we are not here as a board with the power to decide things economically. Here's somebody who goes to business, where they build a house, how many houses, what size they.
So these are different than last time they showed, like this look, they look more kind
Just
of
thinking
like,
that these were.
yeah, that kind of looks at least like separate homes. This looks like apartments. Like windows all synced, like this looks like apartments. It's all gonna look like a huge, and why would someone pay $600,000 for that?
It's not for us to say.
Great, well, next. So did you guys study the architecture? Did anyone, who's the architect?
He is.
Did you study on Kings Highway East what the other homes looked like?
We didn't spend a lot of time looking at that.
Trying to make it look like the rest of the street that's
Whoa,
historic?
whoa, you keep asking questions. They try to answer.
said no.
Excuse me, now you're talking over me.
Give people a chance to answer your question, then answer your next question.
Again, we felt the trends in the market that we're seeing all up and down the East Coast, and the type of homes and the style that the buyers are demanding is reflected in the designs that we're providing.
And how tall are the trees behind it? Because they look like they don't even go anywhere near how tall the actual building is.
I can't testify to anything related to this site that was already private.
Great. So I see a lot of parking lot. Where's the yards for these townhomes? Is there any yard for them to have outdoor entertainment and living? Especially those ones on the sides.
As depicted in Exhibit A8, there is space behind the units that they would have at-grade patios or optional decks.
How many acres per, like, whatever the strip is? It's like 1 or 2 acres, I think it's on there where it blocks out the acreage.
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
But you feel how big these are compared to the mini yards that they have?
Like lot size, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So, as I mentioned earlier, this is condominium ownership. So there aren't individual lots for each townhouse. That area that Jeremy's pointing out behind the units is all part of the common space for the entire condominium association.
And have you guys seen other affordable housing developments in the area called the Cove in Keensburg, where all of the units are in one building, and like they said, they're not like in a different section where they can't use the amenities and stuff?
I have not seen them on Keensburg.
You should check it out. They're all, like she said, they're all community. They're all in one building, and you can't tell. And I think there's one by Whole Foods in this town where they're all in one building, and you can't tell the affordable units apart. So the fact that they're going to be told that they have to stay there, I hope they have a pool too.
There's no pool.
Well, they're going to be defending something. Anyway, next. How does the stormwater, where do the drains go? Do they go to the wetlands in the back?
That was the engineer testimony. That was stormwater.
How are the wetlands protected? What's the buffer zone? Is there any kind of protection for the turtles that are going to be there?
There's protection for the entire wetlands ecosystem, fauna and flora. And that's all set forth in the DEP regulations. They're all adhered to in this project. Basically, the area that you see to the southeast of the project is primarily wetlands.
Because why should Middletown trust a company that has multiple Clean Water Act violations with our wetlands? 370, and a lot of them are in New Jersey. So I hope you guys to consider that this company has a history of violations.
The wetlands are regulated by DEP. There's a
And you guys won't follow those regulations. You've been caught for it on 370 sites in 23 states.
I will just tell you that I've represented Toll Brothers for many years, and we are very particular about following all the regulations and obtaining the proper permits. In fact, all the permits from the NJDEP for this project have already been issued.
And who's going to make sure you follow them?
The DEP.
Well, they didn't in the past. Actually, the EPA, the federal government, had to let you guys.
Entirely different issue.
Our New Jersey environmental protection failed on their violations. It was the federal government who found them. I will. He lives there, right? But you guys hate Democrats, so it's going to be this pissing match, right? Anyway, thank you so much for all of the things you've done in our town already. Bam Hollow, all of the problems you have already caused. I don't trust that you guys are going to follow any kind of Clean Water or Clean Air Act because you haven't in the past. Have a good one. Not really.
Anyone else? right, seeing no one, I make a motion to close the public portion on this. On these witnesses, these two witnesses here. All in favor?